Again, thanks very much for joining us. Much appreciated. I think we got a great session ahead of us today. There has been a tremendous movement over the last decade into making downtowns the center of vitality for a community. And I think that, music plays an integral part in building our capacity in a variety of ways in our downtown communities. It can be a great uh, breaker of cultural barriers. It can be great economic incentives. It can build tourism, can build retail capacity. I mean, there's so many great opportunities, especially in a community like ours that has our downtown, our Conservatory of Music, our machine shop, the Roberta Bondar, the venues on Queen Street, our hotel and food service accommodations. It's a great opportunity to see stuff like this happen, and we're so pleased to be able to have a guest speaker with us today. And Chris, I'll allow you, if you can, please to introduce Mark.
Yes, thank you very much, Rory. Very excited for today. Mark Garner, I tell you, every time I talk to this guy, I'm energized and inspired. I've known him for years. I've had the opportunity to work with him, and I'm very excited. Key to any successful music city is really having those those integral organizations, buy in to that value proposition that music can really enhance a city, and in particular a downtown core. And Mark has been very successful both in the business and as a community leader for more than 30 years. And now he is overseeing the downtown Yonge business improvement area as the executive director and chief of staff. He is a champion for building a vibrant city center, and he is overseeing the largest BIA in Canada, and certainly one with a very, very rich music heritage and certainly a thriving music scene in the heart of the city. He's been a senior executive at major Canadian companies, including the Bank of Montreal, and he's concentrating his revitalization and developments around downtowns, playing an integral role and a catalyst for economic growth. He's very action oriented, which is very important in all of this. Mark likes to get things done. He believes in big projects and getting them done, and he has spearheaded numerous campaigns to bring about improvements in his city. He's executed programs on cleaning up laneways, developing a comprehensive music strategy for the BIA, and he's working with municipal leaders and pushing that effort forward. So very excited to have you here today, Mark, and welcome to Sault Ste. Marie.
Thanks for that. I appreciate the introduction and kind words as always, Chris. But just so that everybody knows, I'm still the putz, even though that's such a great bio. And sometimes I wish, Chris, if you could phone my house and tell my partner, but see here, I'm still the putz that doesn't load the dishwasher correctly. So no matter what I do in the community, I'm still, very grounded in the things that sort of get us through the day-to-day existence. I'm very pleased to be here and support the work that Chris and Sault Ste. Marie is doing around Music City and the conversation that you're initiating and sort of the tasks you're going to go through. I was saying earlier when we were just convening to fire up the session is, there's any of the tools that our BIA or any of the work that our team has done, we'll share those things with you openly. If there's partners you need to connect with, we'll help with all that stuff. I believe in what's referred to as ROI, rip off and implement. No need to reinvent the wheel. And very pleased to be here to talk about our strategy and what we've done. So on that note, I hope I'm going to go through, there's no slides. I'm just going to have a conversation because I think I'd rather sort of dive into an open dialogue and conversation about the path you're sort of headed in and where you're going towards. And then how do we help, how do we assist, and how do we make the connections to make sure that you're successful in the journey you're about to embark on. Downtown Yonge is, anybody that's been to Yonge Street back in the day, and I look at the faces that are here, you've all had a
Mark, we're losing you a little bit. Maybe folks, if you want to stop your
The
video,
North American music scene.
Mark,
We
you're
all
cutting
good?
you're cutting out on us a fair bit. Maybe the video component, if people want to stop sharing on video, we might get a better feed. Oh, I think we lost them. Chris, we'll need to reach out to Mark. Looks like we've lost him.
But he's still there. He's there with video, but I don't hear him. You're right. Oh, his mute's on, Rory.
Mark, we're having trouble hearing you there, buddy. There you go.
Coming back.
There he is.
Sorry about that. Sometimes I think this is master planned by Bell to get us all to upgrade to, 5G. Maybe
Yeah.
what I'll do is I'll turn off my video just to make sure that we're connected, okay?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Yonge Street always played an iconic role in sort of not only in the Canadian music scene, but the North American music scene. And always was, Yonge Street was that place where everybody came to go to great venues. It was all where all the legacy performance venues were, like Massey Hall. Again, with, places that have been there over the years, whether it's been the Blue Note, the Colonial, the Friars, Gasworks, you name them all, have been sort of iconic. I think very early when we initiated the Music City conversation in Toronto, I took a very firm position that we've always been a music city. We don't need to define ourselves as a music city. We have been a music city. So let's get the context correct. Excuse me. It really has been around how do we leverage the past into the present and into the future. And that was the development of our music strategy. And I will make our music strategy accessible through Chris to everybody so that you can see what we've done, but I'll just talk briefly. We were very clear, and part of our music strategy around that past, the present, and future was we wanted to make sure we were talking about historically designating or plaquing and producing content around Yonge Street's or Toronto's past music legacy. So we did a lot of walking tours. We worked with Heritage Toronto to have very interactive walking tours. We were very focused early on music tourism to make sure that, we were holding 10 to 15 walking sessions a year with up to 30 people per walking session along Yonge Street. And you stopped where these iconic performance venues were, and you talked about the music scene. It was very interactive. We had a gentleman by Nicholas Jennings, who is Canada's probably foremost music historian. He used to write for Maclean's magazine, has interviewed just about everybody in the industry, did our walking tours. And through that, we also surprised the attendees because there's still a lot of iconic musicians that live in Toronto. So we would have them show up for those walking tours. So we always made sure we were working on plaquing, walking tours, producing content, making sure that we had social media presence around the legacy of music and the importance of music in our neighborhood. But it was very key to make sure that when we sort of shifted from the past, how does that feed into the present? And we made a very clear decision early on that part of our role as a BIA was going to be specifically around audience development and artist development. With the loss of performance venues on street, we had to find a way to support those musicians. As I like to say, it's always great in Toronto if you're able to live in a 2-story, 3-story neighborhood where you hear that high school student or a student at any grade practicing for their gig, or you hear a musician that lives in your community that's going to be playing, the bar on Friday and Saturday night. Sort of music would permeate the air. But with Toronto's problem, we have what is I refer to as these vertical neighborhoods. I have, 60, 80-story towers, vertical neighborhoods on individual corners now. And if someone's trying to tell me that those artists don't live there, they're wrong. They do live in those places, but they don't have places to practice. They don't have the bars to play in. So we invented something called Play the Parks. And what that was strictly about was support emerging artists or the indie music scene, and really give musicians a chance to hone their chops in practice so that they could get paying gigs that got them into the bars, that eventually hopefully got them to Massey Hall or tours across Canada. So with Play the Parks, when we launched, we're now in I think we're coming up our 9th season this season. We started with putting Play the Parks strictly in parks. And we did, maybe 15, 20 shows during the summertime to make sure that the people that lived in the neighborhood came out and listened to music, people that worked in the neighborhood, or even people that came down as a destination. They were on Yonge Street or seeing something at the square, or they came to shop at the Eaton Center, that they could be exposed to emerging artists. So that first season, we had 5,000 people through our park system to listen to shows. And now we're up to over 100,000 people coming to our shows on Yonge Street and in our park system. So as I like to say, we're the largest and most attended open air festival in Toronto, because it's all over the summertime, and we do them at different times, at lunch hours, in evening hours. We look at different genres of music. We're very supportive of emerging artists. And then with the future, it's where do we go next? And so we're leveraging the investments that we've made around our Music City or our music strategy, is to make sure that, we've grown our Play the Parks. So our Play the Parks is now performing in Calgary. We're looking at Vancouver. We're into Hamilton. So what we're actually producing now is, not only do you play Yonge Street, but you're now going to get a touring gig out of this. And we work with very strategic partners on this type of work. We took us a couple of years to get TD Bank on board, because we were just not at the right volume for them to submit money to this. But we now are funded by TD Bank as we match dollar for dollar, whatever TD Bank puts into this. But it took us a lot of years to sort of build that relationship, and then build the vision and mission and values of what we saw we were trying to accomplish around brand recognition and supporting artists in general. We also, part of our music strategy, we work with Canadian Music Incubator, or Coalition Music, here in Toronto on training for artist managers. We've had multiple sessions in our neighborhood at Yonge and Dundas, and we've helped them sort of roll out that development and training programs as part of a Music City initiative. So we've been very focused on, how do we continue with just telling the past history? How do we then drive into how are we supporting music today? Where do we see it going? And then driving towards the future. So it's a great relationship. We work very closely with Mike Tanner, our music officer at the City of Toronto, but I also work with lots of other music officers across Canada, Ottawa, London, Ontario. A lot of those partnerships have been successful in developing our strategy and supporting the strategy. We do a lot of work with Music Canada and the Canadian Live Music Association, are two organizations we're very close to. And based on the work we've done, I've been very privileged to receive from Music Canada their President's Award for somebody outside the music sector supporting the music growth in the music industry, and was the first to receive that. I believe Chris Campbell has received that award and that recognition as well. So hats off to you, Chris. Yeah, it really is. We've got to play an active role. What we did around Music Canada's Music City initiative, we took a look at that policy, and we determined, out of the 85 or 125 action plans that are there, how can we take a role? So we just parsed out pieces that we knew we had in our power and our control to be able to do. And we dove into that, very quickly. And that's what's garnered the support and the continued growth of the music sector and the music tourism that we're driving now. Rebecca Stubbs on my team, who is actually on the call today. Rebecca has been a key component of everything we're doing in the music sector, because Rebecca has put all our music legacies. When we had to shut down because of COVID-19, we pivoted very quickly to online content. So all our walking tours are now online. You can go to our website and see them, or you can even go to Heritage Toronto, because we also help fund music walking tour through Heritage Toronto as well. It's just continual growth, just taking small bites, getting there. Sometimes we get overwhelmed when we see the loaf of bread that we're trying to consume, and we've just taken it a very focused slice at a time to get us to where we are. And the amount of partnerships that have come out of the woodwork and relationships has been absolutely profound for us. And I'm saying, just so you know, Rebecca is using the chat room. She has posted our music memories tour of Yonge Street, if you want to take a look at that. But I think, Chris, I turn it back to you. I'd rather just get into some conversation to really, you know, dig down deeper of what Sault Ste. Marie is looking at, what you want to do, how we support artists, and just open it up to a conversation. Because I think even when we first joined in, we were having some good banter around the challenges and what's needed and what's involved.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would encourage everyone thank you so much, Mark. This is great. Encourage everyone to please use the chat function for your questions, and Rory and Greg and I will kind of monitor that. So you talked about some great programs there. I love the Play the Parks program and some of the cities. Now, do you see an opportunity for cities that such as Sault Ste. Marie that are, smaller centers to get involved in a program like that? That seems like a great opportunity.
Absolutely. And I would say, organically, sometimes when you start to build these programs, the community will get engaged. Just so you know, I've looked at programs and I was very pleased at a program that was done as an example in Summerside, PEI. So you don't need to be a big city. They started to produce like Play the Parks, but instead they did it in retail businesses. They have a barbershop that they produce and sort of support. And they broadcast that live or stream it. Play the Park was good because I think when we all come out of COVID, public realm has always played a significant value for community in the first place, the quality of life and why we moved to neighborhoods. But activating your park space on Thursday nights, Friday nights, Saturdays is fantastic. And allowing your local musicians or touring musicians to come in and play in park space. People want to convene when we come out of COVID. So they're going to want to bring their deck chairs and foldy chairs and beverages and come and sit in a park and listen to the local talent. So I encourage, Play the Parks as it's been very successful for us. When we started it, 5,000 people, and we're up over 100,000 people now in our park spaces listening to emerging music and artists.
That's great. I mean, it provides opportunity for local artists. It creates a vibrant downtown. And there's also that opportunity, as you mentioned, of, moving artists around, which is something that, is inherently great. So that's something we definitely will want to explore.
Mark, how did you make sure that the proper infrastructure was in place on a regular basis? And two, how did you make sure everybody got paid?
Yeah, it's a very good question. One of the things, Rory, what we mentioned is we tried it different ways, right? When we first started Play the Parks, I used to be in a lot of different establishments picking the bands for the coming year. And we did that for a couple of years. But then as it grew, you need to partner, you need to find somebody that is doing artist management. And we partnered with Roy Thompson Hall, Massey Hall, as part of every year. So one of the things that we did as part of the purpose built is we rotated it through the sector to various people that are doing planning for musicians that can put small tours or do all the bookings that need to be done. So we went from Massey Hall, Roy Thompson Hall, we went to Music Canada, we wound up with one of the labels doing the work for us. And currently right now we've got a partnership with Coalition Music that is doing this year's, determining the artists of who's going to perform. They submit them back to us and then we select it. We also bought all the backline originally and bought the tents and things. So we had all the equipment there to set up. Now what we've done is we sort of simplify it through Coalition. They bring in the equipment, or if the artists have the equipment they want to bring in, we just facilitate that. We help them with their load and unload and make sure that everything is rehearsed and ready to go prior to, launching the show, depending on the time that it appears.
Mark.
And the artist, I just want to answer that question for you, Rory, around money. It's key to us that artists get paid. We want to make sure that they're making not only scale or higher when they play Yonge Street, so it is sort of a preeminent appearance. And as I said, we finally got TD Bank behind it. Our program we launched, I think our initial investment might have been $55,000. We're well up over $100,000 now because we're producing, 45 shows a year now. So as it's grown, we still make sure that artists are all making scale or higher.
Hey, Mark, what the coalition partnership you have, where are those shows being held? Is it throughout the city?
No, it's specifically, Greg, it's a good question, and specifically in our neighborhood. So we program a couple of spaces. One is Trinity Park, so it's in
Oh, yeah.
behind the Eaton Center.
Yeah.
The other one is College Park, which is the largest park next to Allen Gardens. So it's in behind, GWL's College Park building.
Yeah.
And then we also program two little parkettes called McGill Granby, which are on Yonge Street as well. But we also will program in partnership, we'll put extra shows on with the large property owners, whether it's Bentall, Green Oak, Oxford. If they've got a piazza, we'll program that for them as well.
And
And
nothing.
we get a lot of support from them. They'll contribute, $5,000 to $10,000 to put a couple acts on
Yeah.
during the summertime.
And all free, and basically went to TD for sponsorship on it.
Yeah, it's all free to the community. We
Yeah.
do not want to start charging. We found that with TD, it was a struggle for the first couple of years because we kept going to them and we didn't have the volumetrics. But once we hit that 50, 60,000 people a year coming through, then all of a sudden their brand recognition was huge. And now they're working with us potentially of rolling out Play the Parks across Canada. So
Now-
that, if you get Play the Parks from our brand, you also get TD Bank and you get all our brand recognition, everything ready to go.
Right.
And then we help with all that work.
Now, why not Yonge Dundas Square? Why are you sticking to the parks? Just out of curiosity.
Well, one of the things, I say, downtown Yonge Street is a complicated 50,000 piece puzzle. And right in the
Yeah.
middle of that puzzle, I don't own any responsibility for Yonge Dundas Square. It's city owned property.
Oh,
And
I
it's
see.
it's the only space that is managed the way all public space that the city owns. They basically, it's a for-profit organization. But we were able to work with them when Virgin Mobile was the sponsor of the square to do, Indie Fridays, where they actually started to put music on the square. And that's what we're trying to work with them now is how do we continue to grow the music scene in Toronto? And how do we make it accessible to all and how do we fund it? So they're finally on board. They understand the value. So what we did, again, as I say, I'm tired of trying to pull people to the table to do a music city. We find like-minded and like-hearted. And then finally, after they saw the amount of foot traffic we were generating, they go, oh, shouldn't that be on the square? 80,000 people or to 100,000 people on the square a year is a good thing. So now they've bought into it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there's a good question from Courtney. Tap into any of the government grants before TD. We tried, Courtney. We tried all those funding grants. One of the challenges that we had is we're not in the music sector. So a lot of when we started to build our plan, they're like, well, why is the business improvement area doing this work? And we've always said very clearly that we are an arts and culture organization because arts and culture will drive economics for your neighborhood. So don't just view us as business improvement. I've actually tried to coin a new phrase for what I refer to as BIA 2.0. It's more about community improvement. Because if I could only care about front of house on retail, then my life would be very easy, but I have to look at the entire wellness and health of a neighborhood. So we tried for those grants. Rebecca has been successful with some of the grants. It's not consistent. You're all fighting for the same dollar. The dollar hasn't increased. So you're all fighting for it. So a lot of the times the big economic festivals will get the money. So North by Northeast Festival, as an example, will get the cash. So I'm trying, he might get $100,000 and we'll wind up with $5,000. Well, what does $5,000 do for us? So we took a different tact, but we still partner with North by Northeast. So we're building a collaborative brand together around the sector. And so we're just trying to stay in our lane, let the big boys do what they do and girls do what they do on the events and festivals, and then finding our niche. And that's why we define very clearly, we're about audience development and artist development. But it's a good question. Funding is always a challenge, but we're all fighting. You're going to go to Slate, you're going to go to all the same names and organizations, and we're all trying to get the same, whatever money's available. The pot's not getting bigger, but that's why we lend our voice through Canadian Live Music Association and my dear friend Aaron Benjamin around the sector to make sure the federal government, provincial governments, and the local governments are all putting more money into this sector specifically.
Mark, other than this would be the $1 million funding question, other than the recent announcement for, the money, 181 million going to Heritage Canada, do you know of any emergency COVID funding sources out there that have been recently announced? We're trying to keep a close eye on it all.
Yeah, I would say, I think it's a good question. And I would make the connection, and Chris can help you with that, but I would go to the Canadian Live Music Association, because that's where it is all at. If you're not a member of the Canadian Live Music Association and the work that you're doing, you should and become a member. It's not that expensive, but through that, you're going to find out where all the funding is. And Aaron and the team at Canadian Live Music is doing a great job.
Yeah, and Aaron did a webinar on February 17th with us, so we got right up to speed.
There you go. So you know her well. She's a powerhouse. She's a dynamo in the industry.
Fantastic.
Hey, Mark,
amazing advocate.
Yeah, Mark, question for you. When you started to head into live music in the park and that, how did you handle some of the backlash that may have come with it? So, like, in terms of looking at it as you're competing against this, you're taking opportunity away from it. Somebody's going to go to the park instead of come to my venue or come to my establishment. And how do you change that conversation from competition to co-opetition?
No, that was a key component. And the way we looked at it is, first off, in the park space that we're performing in, there's a massive residential component around there. So we did pay, significant, concern to noise that we would be generating, the genres of music. We didn't, as a purpose-built thing, we didn't put any heavy metal or grunge in. We did, a lot of ethnic music, and it was great. What we did and the way we dealt with that issue is we said, okay, if you liked hearing this performer at lunchtime, they're now appearing in Pogue Mahoney's at 5 to 7 o'clock or 9 to 10 o'clock tonight. So we built that as part of a strategy, and we continue to try and push that direction. There's a lot, it's challenged, live music in venues sometimes goes over well, and sometimes it doesn't. But that's how we built that right from the get-go, is to make sure that, no, we're being complimentary. And in partnership, that artist, if we can get them booked into your place as well through Coalition and other partners we have, that's the intent. That's the intent. Go into a retail space, go and listen to this artist again if you liked it. We have people based on what we're doing now in the neighborhood associations, because we put banners up and we do mass emails. We also do print. And you find that all our cards of our run schedule of who's performing, showing up into the neighborhood and actually seeing artists that they want to see. We also did support that is we always do surveys. Well, how did you hear about us? What artist do you like to see? Who was your favorite this year? So we actually reward the artist that was the #1 artist for the year or the season. But we also have printed T-shirts to say the #1 play the Parks fans. So then reward your audience, start to recognize those usual faces, give them swag, give them merchandise. They love it, and they will expand your brand and the support you need. And then when they're in a restaurant, they'll be saying, well, did you know so-and-so played the other day? Why can't they play in your bar? Have you ever reached out? And they'll make those organic connections for you.
Mark, okay, another thing that's been popping up quite a bit with us is we're talking about building a website for Music City, is centralizing the events in the city. How do you handle that? You were just talking about, if you like this kind of music, you might find it being played at this pub. Do you work from a centralized events calendar that ties in everything together, or has this become a problem with you?
Yeah, it is a bit of a problem because, again, for our municipality, common communications and disseminating a message is very complicated. So we get very, very little support from the city to promote or have that general communication. We do it ourselves. And then there is times where we do showcases or openings that we do get the city engagement on that. And we've tried to help with their, because we also set up through Mike Tanner at the city, they set up the Toronto Music Advisory Committee or Council. And we connect with them on the work that we're doing every year so that at least that committee is aware of it and then push that out. It is a challenge. There's a lot of different websites out there. And again, it's, do you need your own website? I'll actually direct you to something called Awesome Vancouver. And Awesome Vancouver is just a general website for the city of Vancouver that you can go and find any of the content that you want. And this would be a part of a good thing for you guys to consider as you look at your Music City. Maybe it's Awesome Sault Ste. Marie, and then from there, it connects into all the different conversations.
Yeah.
And Music City could be a component of that.
I will interject and say that we've been working closely with the city, and they very much are on board of becoming decentralized calendar for all of us to feed from. So I just wanted to know, in your opinion, that sounds like we're heading in definitely the right direction.
No, I think that's great. If you've already got that support or level
Definitely.
of support with the municipality, then you're already on a path that I've been fighting for years to get to. So that's great.
Mark, talk to us a little bit about the recovery. I mean, we're not in recovery yet because a lot of us are in varying zones that we're not at the point. But what role do you strategically think that music is going to play in the scene, because you've got such a vibrant scene, will play in the overall recovery efforts, as it pertains to the BI?
Chris, it's just, we're all trying to figure it out, right? We're all trying to look into that crystal ball and go, okay, what is the future of everything that we're working on? And I honestly think as part of our recovery strategy, we're leading with arts and culture. Hospitality has been hit the worst. Not only with just the, restaurants, hotels, but all of the legacy and performance live theater, but the music venues. And I think as we safely open back up again, everybody's going to want to get back to live music, being in their neighborhood again, having a pint, having a burger, listening to a great band. And I think that is our future. And I think we're going to see that sector, whoever survives COVID, we're going to see them being very successful. I'm already seeing in data that I'm capturing around, restaurants in Miami as an example. They're already booked solid with reservations for over 2,200 people for restaurant reservations over the next 3 months. So it's there. As you open up, it's going to come back. People want to be back there. I think in the chat box, buying decisions are still being made. It's being made by eyes and fingers now versus feet and ears. You hear things, you see things, and you go into a store. I think when we all get back to convening again and rediscovering our neighborhoods and our downtowns, this sector will respond very quickly, very quickly.
Absolutely.
Mark, how would you deal with some of your members, as an association that were a little complacent and finding it hard to get themselves, on the bandwagon and maybe just, overall being a little bit negative?
Well, here's the number analogy. You can write this one down, Rory. 20, 30, 50. 20% of your members love you, will be there, support everything you do. 30% hate you, undermine you, have no interest in any of the work you're doing, and 50% sit on the fence. You can spend all your time focusing on the 30% and trying to convince the 50. So we focus on people, again, I think I had mentioned like-minded, like-hearted. We focus on the 20%. And then what we've seen is the evolution of the 30% and the 50% come over to, hey, this is great work, it's generating economics. You need to have measured outcomes, and we do that a lot. Data is your key partner in all of this. How many people showed up for a show? How did you find out about it? We do that data gathering all the time. What do you want to see? Like, we're building this for you. It's not for, obviously we're supporting artists, but we're trying to build community. So yeah, we use that 20, 30, 50 analogy all the time. I can spend copious hours working on the 30%. I just focus on the 20%, and what's happened, and it's been very positive for us, is the 30% turns into 15% and the 50% turns into 40%, and the rest goes back into the 20 and continues to grow.
Yeah, you know what? I had a great presentation of somebody who sort of took that, but they called it, we're so familiar with the 80-20 rule, 20% of your business comes from, or 80% of your business comes from 20% of your members, or,
Yep.
The other side of that being is that, when you break it down, 10% of your people that are involved are absolutely fully engaged, positive. 10% will drag you down at every possible chance you get. And who do you want talking to the 80%?
Yep.
You want the top 10% talking to the 80%, because as soon as you lose the 80% on a downward trend, it's for a disaster. So very similar. It's a great concept and where to focus. And, we need the, people like here that are around this table right now influencing those others that are in the middle or on the fence, right? Don't
Yeah.
waste your time on the haters. Let's get this thing moving, and let's get it fired up.
You touched on something that was very important on the measuring, and that is it's your political insurance almost. And I know downtown Yonge participated in quite a survey or a study process, looking at the impact, in part of the impact relating to COVID, but it also rattled the cage, I guess, so to speak, and making that known, the impact of live music venues in downtown Yonge, and and the jobs, that were hit. Do you want to talk a bit about that process and
No, it is, one of the things that, and Erin Benjamin probably brought it up if she was on one of your previous sessions. The way I view our role is I'm not the expert in this, but I know we play a role in the quality of the music sector. So, the relationship we have with Erin Benjamin is anytime she's short cash, come knocking to us and we help fund. We know that we can get the reach, we can get the the message help to be phrased and make sure that this work is done. Since lockdown of March 2020 to September of 2020, we lost 11 performance venues in Toronto alone. By the end of December, that number was 25. So that's the message we need to. What's under siege for us is the loss of vitality and health in our neighborhoods. People moved into neighborhoods because they want to go to a performance venue. When the Orbit closed, and when Sneaky D's is about to close and be redeveloped, and I mean, there's so many venues I can just rhyme them off. Is, well, why do I want to live in that area anymore? Because you just took out the vitality and the health of why I'm there. So right. I thought through that report that Erin, Mike Tanner, and the BIA, as well as some other key stakeholders, invested in, was a message that needs to be told. As we know, at all levels of government, you need to be talking numbers. And it's one thing that the sector maybe has not done proactively enough or clear enough. Once you start saying this is the GDP impact of lost music, then all of a sudden people start to listen, and they understand that people are in the music sector for quality of life. And that needs to be recognized. So arts and culture, we're looking at doing another study. Rebecca and I have started a conversation about doing just our own analytics. So taking the overall, Canadian Live Music report and distill it down to our own venues and our own theaters, so we understand the economics on an individual neighborhood basis.
Yeah, Mark, how have you been able to convince many of the businesses or people involved in the industry to share their information? Because there tends to be some sensitivity around, well, I don't want anybody know how many ticket sales I made, because they'll say I'm getting rich off of this, that kind of concept. How do you break that notion and continue the conversation about data collection is so critical to the success of a music city?
Yeah, it's a big challenge. We see ourselves as we call ourselves the great convener. We'll bring numerous different stakeholders, partners, and businesses together. We've taken a very proactive approach around data. A lot of small independent business may not understand their own economics, the products that they keep in their store. And, you've got wasted square footage space that you're not generating any economics from. I actually use an analogy from an organization called Fight Unemployment, which basically says when you spend $100 in your neighborhood, $68 stays in your neighborhood. You're paying for that kid's next door next door to you tuition fee, you're paying someone's mortgage, that is what you really need to focus on, is the economics of your area. If you're spending money outside of the businesses in the neighborhood, then basically you're lucky if you keep $15 in the neighborhood. So the economics is key. It has been, again, I get back to that 20, 30, 50. There's a lot of businesses that don't want to share their data. There's a lot of people that don't understand why they need data. We do something here. I just finished as the start for this year is a whole tour of our neighborhood with our membership. And we held, various different sessions, Zoom sessions, WebEx sessions, specifically on data. And then I have planned what I call precinct meetings. So I go into specific areas within our community and talk about data, and we continue to refresh our data. And then we suggest how the data could be leveraged. And it starts to, inspire and stir, that entrepreneurial spirit as to how they need to leverage the data that we're gathering and showing the value of being members. I would also direct you to on that whole member conversation. I'm going to basically point you to the Glebe in Ottawa.
Yeah.
And the Glebe in Ottawa has a great document that we're actually leveraging and starting to implement, as well as how do members engage with your BIA or with your community. And it defines very clearly 20 ways you can engage. It can be day-to-day operational things. It can be strategic music things. But, Andrew and the team at the Glebe have done a great job to say how to engage in your community from a business perspective, as well as a neighborhood perspective. So there's tools out there. Don't reinvent, just go find them. And I can point you in that direction as well, or our team can point you in that direction.
Yeah. Right on. I got a question here from my good buddy, Paul Skaggs, on the neighborhood. He's mentioned some of those parks and, surrounded by residential neighborhoods, was drawing from the local residents a good portion of those attendees. And then how important are the local neighbors in achieving the ratios, which were just reviewed, that 20, 30, 50 kind of ratio thing.
So Paul, it's everything. It is absolutely everything. One of the challenges that we have in our neighborhood, we happen to be a live, work, play, shop, and learn. So, I'm lucky enough to have Ryerson University in our neighborhood. We are the preeminent shopping destination. But people forget that Yonge Street was first a residential community, and the residents play a key role. We work directly with the neighborhood associations in talking about our Play the Parks program and what they would like to see and what they didn't like. There's a lot of times, based on age demographic, that it varies a lot in our neighborhood. So some people don't want to hear certain bands at 7 o'clock at night when they've got a dinner party going on Thursday night or a Friday night. So we deal with those issues, but we make them actively engaged. And it's all, your success is going to be around not only the people that work in the neighborhood, but integral is the people that live in the neighborhood. It's for them and it's for the artists. It's why you chose to live in that neighborhood.
Yeah, and Mark, obviously Toronto's very much a multicultural community. And how much did that play into, how you sort of set your agenda and, play, I guess, to certain dominant cultures in particular areas?
Absolutely. You've got to support the diversity in your community. We have Indigenous artists. We've put on a sitar player in a park. We are just open to everything because it's actually introducing the community to different genres of music, and you understand the cultural diversity and the quality of music that's out there that you normally would not see. We've done Spanish, we've done, you name it, we've done it all. And it's a very interesting compilation. You will be able to search on our website to see some of the musicians we've had. We've done from big band sound to, like I say, sitar players. We do it all. And we're not necessarily focused. A key driver for us is not just, 200 people showed up for that show versus 5,000 for that show. It's just about the musician and exposure.
And do you take applications for those musicians? Do you screen them? What's that process?
Yeah, it is a bit of a screening process. Like I said, it was, a lot of my disposable income was spent in a lot of my, surrounding performance venues because I'm out there till whatever time in the morning listening to bands, passing business cards and making connections. And you realize that, no, you need somebody to manage it. So you need somebody that's dedicated around the music office, or you need to look at partnerships. But yeah, we basically, through Coalition Music and who we're working with currently, will submit 100 artists to us, and then our team will go through it, and we'll be able to start to select, and we'll engage the neighborhood associations in that selection process. But once you get it all nailed down, then the booking takes care of it after that.
Right. And I
And
see
one
you've
thing
got-
that we do, nobody's asked about rain nights.
Yeah.
Greg, I'm surprised you haven't asked that question. What if it rains? Do I still get paid? And the answer is, you get paid whether you perform or not.
Interesting. I see Rebecca's added your strategy as well, the downtown Yonge BIA music strategy. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think it's, we garnered some great support when we first put it out there, because as I said, what we did is we looked at Music City and Music Canada and just said, out of the things that you're doing, here's what we can do to support that. And everybody plays a role. And as I always say, we're lucky enough, we have 83 BIAs in Toronto. If 83 BIAs just implemented Play the Parks, one component, whether it's 5 shows or 50 shows, then you change your community overnight. The sector is supported, various people are all working, and it becomes a sustainable industry. So that's what we did that really drove this. We were doing things, we started Play the Parks before we came up with the music strategy. That's one of the things I launched very quickly when I came to Yonge Street, or back to Yonge Street, I should say. We launched the arts and culture and music sector. And then as we started engaging more in the Music City conversation, and our BIA has been directly engaged with Music Canada. We do panel discussions. We find ways to support the sector. We're always a voice to add to the sector and talk about the importance of it. And then it really was taking an inventory of, well, how many musicians, how many people in your community identify as performing artists, whether it's spoken word or whether it's whatever it may be. Having an understanding of what's in your community and how they then can connect. Because a lot of the challenge that we found in this conversation is a lot of artists wind up moving where the paying gigs are. They don't stay in the community that they're born and raised. So you want to sustain this as a good strategy for Sault Ste. Marie, is to, distribute this across, that you have this sector, and we have this arts and culture and music sector. So that's what's, it's evolving. It evolves all the time. I've been thinking of rewriting it again, but it's evolving organically, because now new partners are coming out and say, hey, how would you want to do this? I didn't know we were going to do educational training for artist managers, but it was very successful. We invested some thousands of dollars into it. And next thing you know, we've got, 10 qualified artist managers now out delivering acts. And all we asked for is, when you make it and you sign your acts, come back and play the parks.
Yeah, interesting.
That's definitely one of the mandates of the Music City initiative up here. Is we're doing a number of workshops. One of them is actually one of the next webinar is Ryan Hefford from Management Trust. You're so right. You hit one of our biggest problems, which is musicians moving out of here and going to where they get paid. And another one of our main mandates.
Yeah, you probably, when you were touring, Greg, and I'm sure a lot of musicians moved out of Vancouver and came to Toronto because, you might have had 30 bars, but you had 1,200 bands. So you might got a gig once a month, but that was it. So you come to Toronto because we have this plethora of performance venues. So you're going to get 2 or 3 paying gigs a week or a month, and that's what happens is, once you build the sector, how do you support it?
Right. And of course, we're bringing in the virtual concerts, which is certainly going to help you, enable you to remain in your community and still reach a market.
Yep. As you dive into this conversation, you will stumble upon Austin, Texas.
Yeah, we already have. Yeah.
It's great. It was the Music City, but all of a sudden, because you're so successful, it's too expensive now. So all the artists can't live in Austin anymore.
Right.
Yeah, well, Greg's doing a great thing at the Conservatory of Music, which we hope is going to be a real beacon for us here in attracting, recording talent, and then trying to leverage that, as you say, maybe if they're doing that, they can do a little music in the park or whatever. So trying to leverage those concepts. I know that we've got Ashlyn and Salvatore from the Downtown Association Guys, I don't know if you have any questions that you want to direct towards Mark, but feel free to jump on in here. They do great work, Mark, in activating the downtown space and really trying to make music as much a component of it as possible. But, you know, obviously it's always got a number of challenges associated with it. But, you know, hopefully using that as a catalyst, we can build, you know, greater capacity, right?
Yep. Ashlyn and Salvatore, I'm going to ask Rebecca to post my email address in the chat as well as hers. Reach out to us. We'll give you everything that we do.
Yes, please. This has been really informative. I'm just taking it in and writing lots of notes. And this has been really, really educational for me, especially for smaller spaces. So I definitely will be connecting with you. We do a lot of our summer street parties here in our downtown, which is a business improvement area. And we do have some smaller spaces that we would love to utilize and just really get the word out about our talented artists here in Sault Ste. Marie. So thank you very much. And I'll definitely be in touch.
Great.
Well,
Mark,
good.
maybe just as a little piece of information for you, it's kind of, we're set up where the Downtown Association has a boundary within the larger definition of the city's downtown. So it's a small sort of piece of a bigger pie. I think Tom may still be on the line. And Tom, I don't know if you had any questions around integrating those two together or how, you know, we got Todd from our Arts and Culture Future Sault Ste. Marie on the line too. If you gentlemen have got any questions or comments, that would be terrific. I'm afraid, Mark, I have to sign off because I've got another event I got to get to. I'm going to put Chris in charge from here on out, but I leave it to a great conversation, and thank you so much. Really much appreciate it. And
No,
take care.
great for that, Rory. And please feel free. My email's out there. You've got my contact. Please reach out if there's any questions you have.
Yep, absolutely.
And I say that to everybody that's on the session today. If you want to reach out and ask specific questions, feel free to do that.
There's some huge opportunities, Ashley. I mean, the city of Sault Ste. Marie, there's some great programs, you know, from funding events to overhauling their website to marketing opportunities. You know, and you can take some of that local funding and leverage it against provincial applications, and you could come up with a really good program around some of your activations. So there's a really good opportunity here, and the city has, for a city of its size, has an incredible and diverse high level of expertise and infrastructure for music. Comparative to other cities, it's just great artists, recording studios, and some really cool spaces. So there's a huge opportunity, and I think we're really on a good path.
No,
unless there's any.
Chris, just to add on to what you're saying, your limitation is only as far as you dream and as far as you want to go. You know, people have asked multiple times, what's the first thing you need to do? And I said, you never know. As you take the first step forward on this, you know, it's going to appear you may need a practice space is a priority because you got a ton of musicians, but there's no place to practice. You know, it's developing content. It'll be a multi-pronged approach. I don't think there's just one thing you're going to do that's going to make you a music city. It's a multi-pronged approach.
That's right.
And then you sort of prioritize those things.
Yep. Well,
hey, Mark, I had a question, if that's okay. I just wanted to thank you for coming on today and discussion. Like, I think what you've said today is dead bang on. It aligns perfectly with like a lot of the work that Music City's already been doing, a lot of stuff we're doing with the city and Greg and Chris and Rory and everybody. So it's kind of nice to have that out of town kind of extra set of eyes that kind of are confirming some of the stuff we're doing. Like we're looking at building, actually we're getting pricing on it, that kind of hub for arts and culture where everybody can come to that one spot. And or if it's like Music City, it can just be connected in. So we're the through way for that information. Like we don't have to be the stop, but we're definitely the connector, right? Yeah. And I think that's great that that you came on today and kind of helped spread that word, because I think that like what you described is exactly what we're trying to do here. And, you know, Chris has been super awesome in connecting us with folks like yourself that kind of, you know, being from a smaller town, we tend to see that, you know, we come up with these ideas, but we need somebody almost to justify them. And having someone that has your experience come in and kind of lay that all out just awesome because it reinforces what we're trying to do and people get it now. And I think like, I see this being very, very big in the future. Like we're just building that foundation, but you know, people like yourself. And another important part I just want to mention is the metrics and the numbers. That's something traditionally, like the arts and culture in general, horrible, right? We can't, it's hard to justify, you know, quantitatively the impacts because nobody's recording that or nobody's reporting that to anybody. Like they may have an event and they say, oh, we had so many events or so many folks attend our event, but nobody else knows that. So it's hard to get a gauge of the entire impact of the sector when there's no one-stop place to even report that information. Have you run into that?
Oh, there's always that. It'll always be there, but the minute you start gathering data, and we'll share, I have no problem sharing with anybody here, and whether it's Ashland or anybody that wants it, I have no problem showing you the survey that we take every year with every single concert. So that you build that, you just start building the database and the data, because, you know, one point you mentioned is, I'm not a big fan of justification or validation. It's more validation for me. I'm going to help validate the reason why you've done what you've done through data. And it's not justification, it's validation that the investments you're making is significant to your community. What people forget about specifically Ontario and Northern Ontario, this is not just, oh, well, it's Toronto and it's downtown Yonge and we've got the money. People forget the touring musicians. You've had the Hip, you've had, you know, Great Big Sea, you've had various different bands, whether it's Blue Rodeo, will all, as part of the junket around Northern Ontario before they cross into other provinces, right? So it is a destination for music. It is a place where artists want to play. And that's all you need to do is you just got to tap in to say, hey, we want you here, and they will come. They will come.
That's awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mark, for a great presentation today. That was awesome and inspiring. And we had a great group of people here from all across the local Sault Ste. Marie music sector here. It's just awesome. So thank you once again, everyone.
Thanks to everybody for jumping on and supporting this. It seems to be growing with every webinar, which is great news. Gaining momentum. And Mark, we're going to take you up on offering to share your survey data with us, or at least the survey, because as you know, we're building right now. So any tools you can offer us would be very much appreciated.
Yep. No, I appreciate
Awesome.
that. And let me say this, when you guys get up and running, you'll see my smiling face up in City Ste. Marie.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Awesome.
We're going to hold you to that.
No,
Well, we'll
don't
look at
worry.
that and play the
I'm on my
parts.
way.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.
Thanks,
Cheers.
everybody, and have a great day.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.